Hello, my name is Eric Putkonen. Thank you for joining me. Today's topic is gold as an analogy for Brahman. You may have heard of this before. It is a fairly common analogy, but we're going to go much deeper with it. But for those that aren't sure what Brahman is, I'm going to first define Brahman. Brahman is ultimate reality. It is the substratum of everything. It is all-pervading and infinite. Other terms would be including the self, because in Advaita Vedanta, the ultimate reality is Aham Brahmasmi, which is I am Brahman. You might have heard from Nisargadatta Maharaj, you are that. That is another pointer or term for that. And the Ashtavakra Gita, you hear about consciousness. All these are the same thing. So Brahman is self, is that, is ultimate reality, is consciousness. It's all the same thing that's being pointed at. Brahman is essentially non-duality itself. There is not two, there's no other. And so non-duality is Brahman. Now, in the analogy of gold, they'll talk about like a gold necklace, a gold ring, a gold plate, a gold cup, and they'll name various forms. And while the forms vary, they are all just gold. And if you lift up the plate and say, what is this? Somebody will go, it's a plate. And that is what superimposition is. It's seeing just the form and not recognizing it's gold. And so if they lift a plate and go, what is this? It's a plate. If you lift the necklace, what's this? It's a necklace. Show the ring, it's a ring. They are naming the forms. They are fixated on the form. The forms are superimposed on the substance, the substratum, which is gold. And so the forms can vary, but it is all just gold. And as such, gold transcends form. And at the same time, none of the forms can be said to be other than gold. Well, you can't deny that a gold plate has a different form than a gold ring or a gold cup. The forms vary. Non-duality is not saying forms don't exist. It's saying that all the forms are Brahman. Just like all the items are just gold. There's nothing else there. It's all Brahman. All form is Brahman. If the forms are recycled per se, and we say that energy cannot be created or destroyed, form can simply change. And so, if you take the gold plate and you melt it down and now it's a formless blob, and from that you make a ring and a necklace, there is a change of form. But regardless of the change of form, it's still just gold. It's all just gold. Let's go back to energy just briefly. All there is energy. The chair is energy, this body is energy, the plant behind me is energy, the chairs, the table, everything is energy. Even the air in this space between my hands, there is immense energy. There's X-rays, gamma rays, radio waves, photons of light, tachyons, you name it. Radio waves, cell phone, waves. There is immense energy in this space. And this space, we would say, is formless. There's no form here. And yet, it's filled with energy. And so, the forms are not like separate. It's not like this chair is separate from me. We're all in a pool of energy. And so the chair is energy, the body's energy. In a pool of energy, there's no separation. There's no division. And when things are in a single system, they influence each other. They're interdependent. And it's kind of like if you're all in a pool and someone pees in it, you're all affected. in a single system, what happens affects everybody. And so they are not separate. And so that's also what they're talking about when they're, when we're talking about the various forms of gold, is the ring, the necklace. These forms vary, and they could be melted down and turn into different forms. But it's all gold, and as everything is just gold, it's not really separate. It's not other. Maybe it might make more sense if these items were sitting in a pool of liquid gold that didn't somehow disturb the form they were in, and so the gold ring is floating in a pool of liquid gold that, so it's just all gold. The forms come and go. They're temporary. Variance, differentiation is not against non-duality. Non-duality never says forms don't exist and there is no variation, because obviously a plate is different than a ring. But what it's saying is, fundamentally, the substratum, the substance, what it all is Brahman. And if you fixate just on the superimposed form, if you just fixate on the temporary form that the gold has taken, you forget that it's gold there in the first place. And then you have the idea of separation, of otherness, where it doesn't exist. And so this even plays into, reincarnation, as I was talking about, as if the form, say a gold plate, could be melted down. And when I say melted down, it's melted down into a pool of gold, because it's not separate. And so say the form is in a pool of liquid gold, and the form melts. And quickly we're able to pull out and form another form, say a plate or a cup. And that form is also in the pool of gold, sitting temporarily until it too eventually melts and returns to the gold. So everything is spawning from the gold, and at the same time never other than gold. And so in that way, all forms, past, present, future, are the gold, because it's the same thing, or you're just reusing it. Gold isn't created or destroyed in this scenario. It's the same gold, just being reused, taking on different forms, changing. It doesn't matter. Likewise, going back to energy, the energy of the chair, the energy of this body, could be recycled and turn into other forms. Nowhere is there a me, for there is only Brahman. And so the very idea of a me is an illusion. You can't say my prior form was this, but that form I've never been that. That's illusion. Essentially, when all there is gold, and in various forms, all forms are gold and energy. All forms are energy. At no point do some forms get pulled off to the side and saying, this is me, and all other forms are other than me. That's an illusion. I mean, if a gold ring was sentient in some way and could think and go, well, what will I become in the future? That is a fixation on form. It is forgotten that all there is Brahman. All there ever will be is Brahman. Brahman alone exists. And so the forms do not matter. The forms are temporary manifestations temporary forms of Brahman, which will eventually fall apart because all forms are temporary. And then they're reformed into new forms. Or may stay, like I mentioned, a molten state, may stay formless for a while. The thing is, even science has shown energy isn't created or destroyed. It simply changes form. The sum of energy never changes in the universe. And so, with no coming and going of energy, gold, you name it, it is just the forms that come and go. And so I guess to sum up, the analogy is interesting because not only do they just say, hey, like all these various forms of gold, everything is made from gold, so is Brahman. But deeper than that, it is that all forms are still gold. All the forms are gold. You can't say the gold plate isn't gold. Just like you can't say this chair isn't Brahman. All forms are Brahman. It's just the form Brahman takes, a temporary form, but everything is Brahman. And then if the forms are recycled and turned into something else one way or another, the reforming doesn't change the fact that it's still just Brahman. Nothing gained, nothing lost. It's all Brahman all the time. And in this way, they could say Brahman transcends form. No form is Brahman, but no form is not Brahman in terms of the form wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Brahman. You could also say all change is because of Brahman, and that's the changing forms, the temporary nature of what's going on. But at the same time, as there is nothing gained or lost, Brahman is changeless. Nothing's gained or lost. Nothing really changes. The forms don't really matter. It's all Brahman. It's all gold. And so, again, going back to the analogy, if you have the gold necklace, the gold ring, the forms may change, but it's just gold, gold, gold all the time. The same amount of gold is essentially the same regardless of the form. For the viewpoint of gold, nothing has changed. And so this is just things to keep in mind. As you delve into this analogy, there's a lot to glean, because it sheds some light in dispelling some of the illusions that, well, some people want to say, well, the entire world is an illusion, it doesn't exist. Well, of course the world exists. It's just form, which is Brahman. The temporary patterns within Brahman create what appears to be a temporary form. And it doesn't matter, it's just Brahman. Only if you fixate on the form and say, well, that's a person or that's a tree or something like that, you forget what's really there. And a person isn't a tree, and they don't have the same form or characteristics, and so you want to imagine they're different things. But they're all just Brahman. There's nothing else. And so play with this analogy a bit. It's kind of interesting. If you've got any questions, comments, please post below. But as always, thank you much.